Tiffany Henyard, once celebrated as a rising political star in Dalton, Illinois, has found herself embroiled in a scandal that is swiftly gaining national attention, and for all the wrong reasons. What began as a promising career with grand aspirations to uplift her town and its residents has now transformed into a shocking narrative of financial mismanagement, alleged personal enrichment, and a federal investigation. Henyard, a former beacon of hope for the town, is now under intense scrutiny. Evidence is emerging that suggests she has been misusing taxpayer dollars to finance a lavish lifestyle, at the expense of the very community she was sworn to serve. Her once unassailable position is crumbling as the truth comes to light. Her rise to power in Dalton was both swift and dramatic. After the sudden death of her predecessor, Frank Zuccarelli, Henyard was appointed mayor. Her appointment raised eyebrows from the start, but she wasted no time in silencing her critics with bold promises of progress and revitalization. At the time, Dalton, a financially struggling town, seemed to have found a beacon of hope in Henyard's energetic leadership. She introduced ambitious plans for veterans, seniors, and new economic developments aimed at turning the town's fortunes around. By 2021, Henyard had solidified her grip on power, winning the mayoral election with overwhelming support. She also added the role of supervisor for Thornton Township to her political resume, consolidating two powerful offices under her name. This move significantly boosted her earnings, reportedly reaching an astounding $200,000 annually. Henyard seemed unstoppable. But behind the scenes, the cracks in her leadership began to show. As her political power grew, so did the controversy surrounding her. Henyard's administration quickly gained a reputation for a lack of transparency, and questions about financial mismanagement started to surface. It wasn't long before critics accused her of transforming Dalton into her own personal empire, diverting municipal resources for personal gain. Among the most vocal of these critics were residents who pointed out Henyard's extravagant spending habits. Public funds that were meant for essential services, infrastructure, and community programs appeared to be funneled into her personal expenditures. These included lavish vacations, designer shopping sprees, and, most notoriously, a $500,000 driveway built for her mother's house. As these reports began to surface, the already struggling Dalton residents, dealing with a $3.5 million town deficit, began to question the integrity of their mayor. Social media quickly became a battleground, with outraged residents voicing their concerns about what they viewed as reckless mismanagement of taxpayer dollars. Despite the mounting public outcry, Henyard remained steadfast, continuing to consolidate power and using her position to secure loyalty from allies while silencing any attempt to challenge her. In a twist straight out of a political thriller, the FBI launched an investigation into Henyard's actions. Agents raided her home, uncovering millions of dollars stashed away in hidden caches, suggesting that Henyard had been using public funds for personal gain. This raid proved to be the final straw for many Dalton residents who had already lost confidence in their mayor's leadership. The raid didn't just reveal that Henyard had been indulging in personal luxuries. It uncovered a deeper story. Henyard had misused public funds for a series of questionable activities, including a $67,000 spending spree on travel over just 5 months. This amount far exceeded the annual income of many Dalton residents, raising serious questions about her priorities. What was supposed to be a legitimate business trip to Springfield soon morphed into a personal extravaganza, complete with a large entourage, luxury hotels, expensive meals, and motorbike rides, all paid for by taxpayer money. Perhaps the most egregious detail that emerged was Henyard's use of public funds to promote her own image. It was reported that her face was plastered on billboards, a move that many viewed as a blatant misuse of municipal resources to boost her personal brand. The more that's uncovered, the clearer it becomes. Henyard's fall from grace is a cautionary tale of corruption and greed. Once hailed as a political savior, she now faces the consequences of her actions as the FBI continues to dig deeper into her financial dealings. The question on everyone's mind: can she spin her way out of this? Or is her political empire truly coming to an end? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain: the people of Dalton are watching, and they want answers. A waste of public resources, but as an outright display of arrogance and vanity. Instead of addressing the town's dire needs, Henyard used taxpayer money to promote her own image, plastering her face across billboards throughout Dalton. This move, while perhaps meant to boost her public profile, only fueled the growing anger of the community, who were already grappling with inadequate municipal services, crumbling infrastructure, and mounting debt. Amidst this financial turmoil, Henyard's vanity project, paid for by the very taxpayers she was supposed to serve, became a symbol of everything that had gone wrong under her leadership. This public display of self-promotion seemed to mock the struggles of Dalton residents who were waiting for basic services like road repairs and improvements to their schools and hospitals. Instead, they saw their hard-earned dollars funding billboards that praised the very person whose leadership had led to their town's decline. But the scandal didn't end there. The Henyard Care Foundation, which was originally established as a breast cancer charity, quickly became another focal point of controversy. What was meant to be a noble cause now faced allegations of being misused to finance Henyard's extravagant lifestyle. Investigators uncovered evidence that donations meant to help the community were allegedly being funneled into personal indulgences, including lavish vacations, designer clothing, and, shockingly, the construction of a $500,000 driveway for Henyard's mother's home. The public was outraged. A foundation designed to help those in need was instead being used as a front for personal enrichment. The hypocrisy of Henyard's actions became glaringly apparent as the scandal unfolded. How could the mayor of a town struggling with such dire financial issues justify using public funds for personal luxuries? This was the question on everyone's mind as more revelations came to light. As the FBI investigation into Henyard's financial misconduct continued, Dalton's financial crisis only worsened. Municipal services deteriorated, roads went unrepaired, and the town's debt continued to climb. Henyard's extravagant spending stood in stark contrast to the daily struggles of her constituents, many of whom were working multiple jobs just to make ends meet. It was clear to Dalton residents that the leadership they had once hoped for had become the very problem they were facing. At the heart of the controversy lies a profound betrayal of trust. Henyard was elected to serve her community, to fight for their needs and interests, but instead she used her position to exploit the very resources meant for public good for her own personal gain. Critics argue that her actions highlight a dangerous pattern in politics: the temptation to abuse power when leaders are unchecked, and the ability to manipulate public resources for personal enrichment. As the investigation intensifies, rumors are circulating that Henyard's inner circle is beginning to crack. Some of her closest allies are reportedly cooperating with investigators, eager to save themselves from potential legal consequences. Meanwhile, Henyard has tried to rally support by dismissing the allegations as politically motivated attacks. Her attempts to appeal to the public through social media, posting cryptic messages about solidarity and defiance, have fallen largely flat. The growing calls for her resignation have only intensified as new details about her spending and alleged misuse of funds continue to emerge. What was once seen as a promising political career is now unraveling in the face of damning evidence. The very people Henyard once claimed to serve are now demanding accountability. What started as an inspiring story of political ambition has now morphed into a cautionary tale about greed, betrayal, and unchecked power. Henyard's legacy will likely not be remembered for her grand promises of revitalization, but for the scandal that has come to define her tenure. Her fall from grace serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of consolidating too much power in one individual's hands, and the importance of holding public officials accountable for their actions. Henyard's case highlights the delicate balance between ambition and responsibility, and how the misuse of power can erode public trust, causing long-lasting damage to a community. As the federal investigation continues, and new revelations continue. To surface, the people of Dalton are left wondering just how deep the corruption runs. Henyard may remain defiant, but her grip on power is slipping fast. It seems increasingly unlikely that she will be able to maintain her position, as the damage to her credibility may be irreparable. The future of Dalton hangs in the balance, with residents desperately waiting for justice and answers. In the end, Henyard's legacy may not be one of progress and change, but a reminder of lost opportunities, corruption, and a community left to pick up the pieces. The saga of Tiffany Henyard serves as a chilling warning of the consequences that follow when integrity and accountability are disregarded in public office. Personal playground, using her position of power to enrich herself and silence those who dared to oppose her. As Dalton's debt continued to soar and essential services deteriorated, Henyard seemed completely unaffected by the financial collapse her leadership had triggered. Her administration became notorious for retaliation against anyone who challenged her authority. Employees, local businesses, and even former allies faced swift and severe consequences, such as wrongful termination and revoked business licenses, simply for refusing to comply with her demands. One of the most notable cases involved Boeing Thrash, a longtime employee of Thornton Township, who claimed he was fired after declining Henyard's offer of a $100,000 raise in exchange for replacing an attorney with someone preferred by her assistant. When he refused, he was promptly dismissed. This became one of the many legal battles that Henyard now faces, illustrating the pattern of retaliation that seemed to define her leadership. Even political allies who once supported Henyard found themselves in her crosshairs. Carmen Carlisle, a former trustee and Henyard ally, became a whistleblower, publicly criticizing Henyard's leadership and exposing a culture of intimidation. Carlisle's allegations were backed by reports of harassment, including claims that Henyard used police resources to intimidate her critics, sending officers to their homes to silence dissent. This abuse of power only deepened the growing mistrust in Henyard's administration and created an atmosphere where fear dominated. Dalton residents and employees alike were scared to speak out against her, knowing the consequences could be dire. The most shocking of these retaliation claims came from P. Dukes, a former assistant, who filed a lawsuit accusing Henyard of sexual harassment during a taxpayer-funded trip. Dukes claims that after she reported the incident, she was placed on unpaid medical leave, further highlighting the toxic and abusive culture within Henyard's administration. As lawsuits continued to pile up, the cloud of controversy surrounding Henyard grew even darker. Her alleged lavish spending, retaliatory tactics, and abuse of power left Dalton in financial ruin. The town, already facing significant debt, now had a $2 million deficit. Unpaid debts for essential services like street paving and tree trimming, and a lack of proper oversight. Dalton had gone without an annual audit since 2021, leaving the town's financial situation in complete disarray. Reports also linked Henyard to a $3 million debacle involving blank checks, a 21% increase in police department expenses, and a staggering $65 million deficit in the general fund. Henyard attempted to deflect blame onto others, particularly her former right-hand man, Keith Freeman, who has been charged with bankruptcy fraud and is rumored to be cooperating with investigators. Despite her attempts to pass the blame, the mounting evidence against Henyard has made it increasingly difficult for her to maintain any semblance of credibility. What was once hailed as bold leadership has now been exposed as a tale of unchecked ambition, financial mismanagement, and personal corruption. Despite the growing evidence and public outrage, Henyard continued to dismiss the backlash, framing it as a natural consequence of the pressures of public life. However, her actions suggest a much darker story, one in which her ambition and ego took precedence over the needs of the community. Federal investigations into Henyard's spending and governing practices are still ongoing, and it remains to be seen if she will be able to salvage any part of her tarnished reputation. Her refusal to acknowledge the calls for her resignation has only deepened the divide between her and the people of Dalton. As the scandal continues to unfold, Dalton finds itself in financial chaos, with its residents desperately searching for accountability and a path forward. Henyard's time as mayor of Dalton serves as a cautionary tale of how unchecked power, retaliation against critics, and reckless spending can lead to widespread corruption, financial ruin, and the erosion of public trust. What was once seen as a promising leadership approach is now unraveling into a series of ethical violations, retaliation, and a total disregard for both the well-being of Dalton's residents and the integrity of local government. The financial mismanagement and abuse of power that characterized Henyard's administration have left Dalton reeling. The town, once hopeful for progress, now faces a long road to recovery as it tries to rebuild from the damage caused by its former leader. Henyard's legacy will likely be one of broken promises, financial instability, and a deep erosion of trust in local government. A legacy that the people of Dalton will not soon forget. As investigations continue and new revelations come to light, the full extent of Henyard's misconduct may still be uncovered. But one thing is certain: the damage to Dalton's reputation and finances will be felt for years to come, long after Tiffany Henyard has faded from the political spotlight. Once seen as a hopeful leader with ambitious plans, Tiffany Henyard's time as mayor of Dalton has descended into scandal, financial mismanagement, and allegations of corruption. Her tenure has been marked by reckless spending, retaliation against critics, and a disregard for the town's well-being. What was once a promising future for Dalton is now a broken town, grappling with the aftermath of Henyard's corrupt leadership. Tiffany Henyard's tenure as mayor of Dalton, Illinois, has rapidly devolved into a battle for control rather than an effort to serve the community. Reports have surfaced that workers were allegedly coerced into spying on political opponents and digging up dirt on anyone who dared to question Henyard's authority. This culture of intimidation has only deepened the public's distrust in her leadership. Residents have repeatedly called for transparency and accountability, but their cries have yet to be answered. Instead of addressing the growing controversy, Henyard has continued to deflect blame, dismissing the allegations as politically motivated attacks. She remains defiant, even as the situation spirals further out of control. Her claim that she is being targeted due to her gender has been seen by many as flimsy and self-serving. By refusing to take responsibility, Henyard has left Dalton in a state of disillusionment, with the financial mess created by her administration continuing to deepen each day. Critics argue that Henyard's leadership has only exacerbated Dalton's financial crisis. The growing deficit and lack of oversight in her administration have alienated the community, making it clear that she is increasingly out of touch with the very people she was elected to serve. The scandal took an even darker turn when the FBI launched a full investigation into her activities. A search of her home uncovered significant amounts of hidden cash, raising serious questions about her financial dealings. Investigators are now examining her financial records, company filings, and the operations of her controversial charity, with potential charges of wire fraud and embezzlement hanging over her head. As this investigation deepens, the calls for her resignation grow louder, with residents demanding answers for the financial chaos she has left in her wake. Despite the mounting evidence against her, Henyard continues to downplay the gravity of the situation, dismissing it as political sabotage. She remains adamant that the allegations are baseless, but with state funds frozen and a growing list of legal troubles, it seems increasingly unlikely that she will be able to salvage her political career. The financial crisis in Dalton is reaching a breaking point. Essential services, like street paving and tree trimming, have gone unpaid, and the town's finances are in disarray. Having operated without an annual audit since 2021, Henyard's refusal to take responsibility for the mess she has created has only intensified Dalton's downward spiral. Many residents believe the situation could have been avoided had she been held accountable earlier in her tenure. Her failure to address growing concerns has left Dalton in crisis, with little hope for recovery. Furthermore, allegations of retaliation against those who dared to challenge her authority have painted Henyard as a leader more interested in maintaining power than serving her constituents. The case of Boeing Thrash, a former employee of Thornton Township, highlights the abusive culture Henyard fostered. Thrash claims he was fired after refusing to replace an attorney with someone of Henyard's choosing. This is just one example of the many legal battles brewing against Henyard for wrongful termination, harassment, and retaliation. Even more disturbing are reports that Henyard used police resources to intimidate critics, allegedly sending officers to their homes to silence dissent. This created an atmosphere of fear and intimidation, further eroding public trust in her administration. As the FBI investigation heats up, Henyard's former right-hand man, Keith Freeman, is facing charges of bankruptcy fraud. It is rumored that Freeman is cooperating with investigators, potentially implicating Henyard in even more financial wrongdoing. The revelations continue to mount, and it is becoming increasingly clear that Henyard's administration has created a financial and political nightmare for Dalton. Dalton's future now hangs in the balance, and the town is reeling from the consequences of Henyard's leadership. Residents are demanding a complete overhaul of the town's leadership, with growing calls for accountability for those responsible for the crisis. However, the question remains: who will step up to lead Dalton out of this disaster? Henyard's leadership has left Dalton in financial ruin, and her legacy will likely be defined by scandal, corruption, and mismanagement. What was once seen as a promising future for Dalton under her leadership has now become a cautionary tale of unchecked power and the corruption that can arise when personal ambition overrides public good. The FBI investigation, along with growing legal troubles and the freezing of state funds, may serve as the turning point that Dalton needs. The town must now focus on rebuilding, restoring financial stability, and re-establishing accountability in its government. This will require decisive action and strong leadership, qualities that Henyard has failed to demonstrate during her time as mayor. For Dalton to recover from the damage caused by Henyard's administration, the town must clean house. Those involved in financial mismanagement and unethical practices must be held accountable, and the town's leadership must be restored with individuals committed to transparency, fiscal responsibility, and ethical governance. Henyard's failure to live up to her promises, coupled with her mishandling of Dalton's finances, has left the town searching for a new direction. The community deserves a leader who values public service over personal gain, and who can rebuild the trust and stability that Henyard's administration has undermined. As for Henyard's legacy, it is already cemented, a legacy of corruption, financial ruin, and a breakdown of trust. The scandal that has engulfed her administration serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and the corruption that can emerge when a leader views public service as an extension of personal control. For now, Dalton's residents can only wait as the FBI investigation continues, hoping that justice will be served and that their town can begin the long process of recovery. But, with Henyard still deflecting blame and downplaying the accusations against her, it seems the road to accountability will be a difficult one.